Welcome to DeFi Crypto and Airdrops. This is going to be the first video in a series that I plan on doing that is going to introduce people to cryptocurrency and just in DeFi specifically and how you can use it to earn passive income. So I'm going to go ahead and just dive right in. So what is DeFi? DeFi is decentralized finance. DeFi, decentralized finance. Pretty simple. It refers to a financial system that's built on blockchain technology. And so that is a digital ledger that is stored online. And I'll get into kind of how that's structured here in a minute. But it operates without traditional intermediaries like banks, brokers, or centralized institutions. Instead, it uses something called a smart contract. I'll get into that here in a minute as well. Those are self executing agreements that are coded on the blockchain to facilitate financial services such as lending, borrowing, trading, and investing. The goal of DeFi is to create an open, transparent, and permissionless financial ecosystem accessible to anyone, anywhere in the world, if you have an internet connection and some in a device like a smartphone, a laptop, or a desktop. It really is opening up banking to the unbanked and eliminating banks in a lot of ways. It's peer to peer. So, unlike traditional finance called TradFi, which relies on centralized entities to manage and process transactions, DeFi is decentralized, meaning it's powered by distributed networks of computers and governed by code. Most DeFi applications run on public blockchains like Ethereum. It was the first to have smart contracts. So why does DeFi matter? So first of all, it democratizes finance by removing intermediaries. You don't need a bank account or approval from a central authority. You don't have to walk into a bank, fill out an application, and be subject to their scrutiny. One person at a bank might approve your loan, another one might not on the same criteria, just because they might not like your debt to income, they might not like your credit score, they might not like the way you look, they might not like what you do for a living. So this really democratizes finance, and you'll understand as we progress. So it increases accessibility. Anyone with a crypto wallet, again, something I'll get into here in a minute, and access to the internet can participate. It enhances transparency. Transactions and rules are recorded on the public blockchain, visible to all. It doesn't necessarily identify you as an individual, they can just see the transaction. It enables innovation. Developers can build new financial tools using open source code. However, DeFi also comes with risks such as smart contract vulnerabilities, market volatility, and so far, lack of regulatory oversight, which is right now, if you're following the news at all, you know that many countries are drafting regulation, kind of the rules of the road for decentralized finance and cryptocurrency. It's not a matter of if it's coming, it is coming. So, how blockchain works. So, the first thing is that you want to say that you want to send money. We'll use that as an example. And you have liquidity. You've onboarded it, you own, say, Bitcoin. And you want to send that. I want to send that to a friend that's overseas. I can I can submit a transaction request, which is basically, just like you would in any payment app, is you just say, I want to send Bitcoin. You select that individual, their wallet or address or whatever it is, and you hit send. And that will go onto the ledger, be processed that me, Mike, is sending X amount of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrency to, we'll say, my brother Taylor. And that will go out to the network. All the different computers around the world that are processing, Bitcoin, that are mining Bitcoin. They will all verify that that is correct and that it is accurate. And once they verify it is correct, that I do own that Bitcoin, then it will process that transaction. And once that is complete, once the validation step is done, then it will add that to the ledger and it will say, okay, I gave up ownership of that Bitcoin. Now, Taylor's wallet is recorded on the ledger saying that he owns that Bitcoin. I hope that makes sense. Let's see. So that's blockchain. So cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is basically digital money that operates on a blockchain in DeFi. Cryptocurrencies like Ethereum, Bitcoin, or stablecoins such as USDT or USDC are used for these transactions as collateral. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Next, smart contracts. So, without smart contracts, DeFi is not possible. Smart contracts are self executing programs on a blockchain that automatically enforce the terms of an agreement when conditions are met. If you're familiar with coding, if and then. So, if I draft a smart contract. We'll take the example I used before. I'm sending cryptocurrency or Bitcoin to my brother Taylor. It says that, but let's add some complexity to it. He's a lawyer and he's going to be providing me legal services and I'm paying him in Bitcoin. I can create a smart contract that says I'm paying him 1 Bitcoin for legal services. That smart contract is drafted. And once he provides that legal service, then that Bitcoin is released to him and not until. So again, smart contracts is just it releases funds to someone after certain criteria are met or property, like real estate. So some of the advantages of smart contracts. One, it's secure, it's always accurate, it's fast, 24/7, 365. You don't again, you're taking people out of the mix. So it allows all of these automated to be fully automated. So 24/7, 365. You can be sending, you can be, making business deals, you can be buying and selling real world assets that have been tokenized. There's a lot of different ways. It's cost effective. Again, it's trustless because it's all digital, it's all logic. There's no people in the mix that can steal, from you. As long as it's a good, solid, smart contract, and it's interruption free. So it's once it's recorded on the ledger, it's recorded. It's fact. It's logic. So next that you're going to need to know about is wallets. There's two types of wallets that you're going to need to know about. One is a hot wallet. A hot wallet is highly accessible. It's usually a browser extension, on your, whatever your chosen browser is. If it's Brave, if it's, whatever, Chrome, whatever you prefer. And it's something you very simply you download it, and it is a place that once you onboard, value or liquidity, your dollars. Say you buy Bitcoin using Coinbase, using your credit card or your bank account, then you could move that to a hot wallet. What that hot wallet allows you to do is interact with a decentralized exchange. Again, we'll get into here in a minute. It's directly connected to the internet, but it is vulnerable to phishing or hacking. So if you connect to a malicious website, then they potentially, if you click the wrong buttons, they can steal, your liquidity or your money. So you have to be very careful and educate yourself on, how to mitigate those risks. And then there's a cold storage wallet, which is called a hardware wallet. And that's something like Arculus or Ledger. It's basically something that is highly secure. It's harder to access your funds. There's a little more knowledge involved, and it's not connected to the internet. So a lot of them look basically like a thumb drive, and it's something that you have to physically connect to your computer to access the funds. And basically, what it is it has a key or an encrypted key in it that verifies that you are the owner of those assets. So we can get into that deeper another time, but that's the basics. So, decentralized exchanges. These are the platforms or protocols, websites that you can go to online and do things like lending, borrowing, providing liquidity, all of these different things to earn yield. So, a decentralized exchange is a platform where users trade cryptocurrency directly with each other without a central authority. They use liquidity pools instead of traditional order books. And examples of this, as you can see on the screen, is Aerodrome, Morpho, Uniswap, Aave, Pancake Swap, Shadow, and there's endless others, but these are some of the major ones. Next up, what is a liquidity pool? So, a liquidity pool is a collection of funds locked in a smart contract provided by users like you and me to enable trading on a DEX. In return, providers of liquidity like you and me, we earn fees from trades. So as you can see in the image here is over on the right, we are the liquidity providers. Say that we want to provide liquidity for USDC, a stable coin pegged to the dollar. One USDC is worth $1. So I provide some USDC and I provide some Bitcoin. And those are the two assets that I provide in this liquidity pool. For that, I earn a yield or, a profit that I just earn. And it's automated 24/7, 365. I'm earning fees. The way that those fees are that those fees that you're getting are generated is on the right. You have traders or people that are taking out loans and things like that. The normal things that you would do with a bank. They are paying a small fee for, swapping, between assets, borrowing, leverage, on an exchange, and I won't get into that. It's kind of confusing, but basically people doing these actions on these, decentralized exchanges are paying small fees. And because you're providing the liquidity to allow them to do that, you are getting paid those fees. So I hope that makes sense. So now, again, a stable coin. A stable coin is simply a cryptocurrency which has a value that is pegged or tied to that of another currency, commodity, or financial instrument. So the US dollar, the British pound, it could be gold, it could be silver, those are commodities. And so it is directly pegged to that asset, or to that currency. And it's not subject to the volatility that other crypto assets are subject to. Pretty simple. So, yield farming. Yield farming is basically something that you can do on decentralized exchanges to earn yield. And it is a process where users lock up their crypto assets in a liquidity pool, a DeFi protocol, to earn rewards, often in the form of additional tokens, and that depends on the DEX that you use. So, so it's like earning interest in a savings account, but there is higher risks, and in future episodes we'll get into what those risks are. But there's also higher rewards. So same as we were talking about before, you are the liquidity provider. You are depositing that liquidity into a liquidity pool, and for that you receive yield. Pretty basic. Traders are the ones that are providing that yield that you're getting because they are borrowing assets from that pool and paying fees. Pretty basic. I mean, it's basically how a bank works. You walk into a bank, you borrow money, you pay interest. Supposedly, the people that deposited their money that you borrowed, they're getting a small bit of that. But in traditional finance, the bank gets most of it. The great thing about DeFi is we, the people, can actually earn on our money instead of letting the bank earn money on our money. That's the beauty of DeFi. All right. So, some one thing that you're going to need to understand when it comes to understanding how DeFi works is something called TVL, or total value lock. And it's critical to understand this in crypto because it represents the total value of digital assets or liquidity or just value in general, deposited or locked in a specific DeFi protocol or platform. The reason this is important, and I can't stress this enough, is you need to understand, and that's why I stress using more reputable and larger DeFi protocols, is if there's not enough TVL, say there's only $1 million of TVL, and you deposit $1 million. And so now there's $2 million. But other people take theirs off, and you go to try to get your $1 million out, but there's no longer enough TVL for you to extract your $1 million. You now are susceptible to something called slippage, which it means that you either may not be able to extract your liquidity. You may have to settle for less. So the more that your liquidity you're providing, the more TVL that you want to have on that, that you want that exchange to have to ensure that you being able to deposit and withdraw your funds is possible. It's just like a bank. If you have $1 million in there and there's a run on the banks, they might not have your money. So, I mean, it's not just decentralized finance; it's traditional finance as well. Next, and this is critical because this is how you earn your fees in DeFi. Remember, I was talking about how whenever people are borrowing assets or accessing these liquidity pools that you're providing liquidity for, um, that is volume. So people, the volume of people that are borrowing and that are doing trading and things like that, that is directly proportional to the fees that you are earning. So if there's no volume, it doesn't matter what the APR of the pool is. It might be a $10,000 APR on the pool, but if nobody's swapping between those assets or using that liquidity in some way, in trading or something like that, there's no fees being generated. Therefore, you're not earning anything. So it's important to understand the relationship of not just APR, but the volume and being able to find where the volume is to ensure that you're earning steady fees. Can't stress that enough. All right. So I'm not going to get into impermanent loss right now, other than just to say that impermanent loss is a risk that is faced by liquidity providers in DEXs when the price of assets in the liquidity pool changes, potentially leading to a loss compared to when you put that into a liquidity pool, you don't feel that price movement as much and you're earning yield. Impermanent loss is when that price volatility, say that the price of Bitcoin goes up, your value in that liquidity pool isn't going to go up as much, but you're earning yield. So as long as the price appreciation that you're getting in that pool plus the yield that you're earning is equal to or greater than if you just held the asset, you are not experiencing impermanent loss. If the yield that you're earning and the value of your deposit is less than if you just held it, that difference is impermanent loss. I hope that makes sense. So, the top use cases of DeFi is asset tokenization, which and there's a term called RWAs, or real world assets. And that is basically when it's starting to happen now, but private credit, real estate, gold, silver, um, bonds, treasuries, stocks, basically anything art, anything physical that isn't liquid can be digitized and make it highly liquid to where, again, it can be traded 24/7, 365, peer to peer, doesn't matter. It can it makes it a lot more accessible and again democratizes the financial system, opposed to centralized finance. Blockchain based credit reports, Web3 lending platforms like I've been talking about, Aave and Uniswap, things like that. Peer to peer trade with the DEX. Again, if there's a platform or a protocol where they've tokenized real estate and they're out there already, you can go on and they can say, the deed to this piece of property has been digitized. Here it is for sale. It costs this much, and we accept Bitcoin or with stable coins or whatever. You buy that, and the ownership on the blockchain is transferred to you. That's simple. And there can be things in the smart contract that perform certain services like the due diligence, making sure there's no liens against the property, things like that. All of that can be included in the smart contract. Again, taking out intermediaries like title companies, real estate agents, and all those people that are costing you money when you're making these exchanges. Um, and that's kind of the long and the short of DeFi. So I hope that at least gives you a rudimentary introduction to the differences between centralized finance, decentralized finance, and some of the terms that you're going to need to understand to get into not just crypto but DeFi, so that you can, if you want, start taking advantage of this yield earning opportunity. So until next time,